Rabbi Berman, our next honoree and this year's commencement speaker, Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt, will be the inaugural recipient of the Presidential Medallion of Exemplary Leadership. Ambassador Lipstadt will be presented by Mr. Emil Fish, dear friend of the university and founder of the Emil A. and Jenny Fish Center for Holocaust and Genocide Studies. Joining in the presentation of this special award is President Emeritus Richard M. Joel.
Mr. President, it is my great privilege to be with you today to present the Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt, United States Special Envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism, renowned author and historian, and a wonderful friend and supporter of Yeshiva University, for the inaugural YU Presidential Medallion for Values and Leadership.
Ambassador Lipstadt, it is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce you as our commencement speaker and to present you with the inaugural Presidential Medallion of Exemplary Leadership. The Presidential Medallion recognizes courageous leadership, especially those who admirably and publicly represent the Jewish people and stand for Jewish values in the public sphere. And we could not find a more worthy inaugural recipient. They love you. The Medrash in this week's Parsha depicts an amazing image. Tani b'shem Rabbi Elazar Hasayif v'Hasefer Nitnu Mukurachim min Hashamayim. One of the great sages of late antiquity, Rabbi Elazar Amadai, describes a vision of the book and the sword falling intertwined from heaven. The Medrash continues by pitting these two symbols against each other. If you don't adhere to the book, i.e. the Torah, you will then get the sword. And this is the common way of thinking of this image as two different and opposing sources of power. The sword represents physical strength and prowess. The book represents the power of ideas. Swordsmen are not usually great scholars. They are soldiers on a field, politicians, world leaders who know how to tactically employ strength. And scholars are rarely gifted swordsmen. They're more comfortable in the quiet and safe recesses of the library and classroom than the public theaters of battle or halls of power. Rare is the individual who can harness both strengths together, who is a renowned scholar and author, and also a public and courageous fighter and defender of justice and truth, in which the book and the sword are intertwined together. Rare is the one who is deeply rooted in our Torah values, a teacher and conveyor of rich contextualized ideas, and who also wields the power of the United States of America. Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt is such a leader. Ambassador Lipstadt, you have fought in the halls of justice, winning a consequential case against a notorious Holocaust denier. And now, as the special envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism, have the full backing of the United States government to ensure that hatred and bigotry find no home or harbor in our society. And you are fueled with the wisdom, insights, and depth that comes for being a great scholar of books and history. Your scholarships and writings about the history of anti-Semitism, Zionism, and the Holocaust have shaped who you are and continue to inform and inspire students of all ages. With this unique blend of the book and the sword of scholarship and strength of wisdom and courage, you understand that your role is not just about defending the Jewish people, but ensuring the character of our nation. As the special envoy, you will shed light unto society, preserving our collective dignity and character. And your rearing has prepared you for this moment. And I can say this quite personally. I had the real privilege of knowing Deborah's mother, Miriam, well. I was the rabbi of her shul, as the rabbi of the Jewish Center in Manhattan, and I would visit her regularly, listen to her concerns about the future of the Jewish people, and share in her nachas, her joy in Deborah's achievements. She loved you so much. She was a blessing of a person, and I know how proud she was of you and is of you as you continue your rise as a leader of the Jewish people and of the United States of America. It's not just your character and your integrity, but also your kindness and compassion you received from the home in which you were raised. All of your life prepared you for this moment. Deborah Esther Lipstadt. You are named after two great biblical heroes who did not remain quiet in the face of oppression, but led our people politically and spiritually, responding to the call of history, like your biblical forebears. Umi odea im ke'et hazot higat l'malchut. Who knows if it was for this very moment that you enter into the halls of power. From your upbringing, your scholarship, your achievements, and very character, we are so confident and so proud that you will succeed be'et hazot, at this very moment, bringing pride, peace, and dignity to the Jewish people and the entire world. And so it is a great privilege, on behalf of the flagship Jewish University, to bestow upon you our inaugural Presidential Medallion of Exemplary Leadership by virtue of the power invested in me as President of Yeshiva University. I confer to you this award together with President Richard Joel, placing this medallion upon your shoulders as a symbol of our high respect and regard for you. Ladies and gentlemen, our commencement speaker for this year, Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt.
Thank you, Rabbi Berman Katonti. And I'm verklempt. It is a great pleasure to be with all of you today. Before I get started, I want to express my appreciation to you, Rabbi Ari Berman, to Provost Dr. Selma Botman, and the entire leadership of this acclaimed institution. Permit me also to acknowledge one of today's distinguished honorees, Kenneth Jacobson, ADL's Deputy National Director and longest serving employee, whose nephew Michael is a colleague of mine at my new professional home, the U.S. Department of State. I remember Kenny Jacobson. I was much younger, I was a kid, when he played basketball, not just for YU, but for Yeshiva University High School, then known as MTA, and subsequently for YU. As someone who has been awarded an honorary doctorate by Yeshiva University in the year 2000, I can count myself as an alumna of this venerable institution. So let me be the first to welcome all the graduates into the august ranks of YU alumni. But I come to you today to speak of something sobering, something that is on your mind as it is on my mind and the minds of so many Jews worldwide. Jew hatred, anti-Semitism. Not only is it on my mind, but as of 3 weeks ago, monitoring and combating it has become my full-time remit at the United States State Department. Let me begin in a strange fashion, given that my topic is Jew hatred, with some good news. I have been so encouraged by the fact that in recent years, so many countries and international government organizations have not only recognized the seriousness of this problem, but have also taken proactive steps to address it. Last October, the European Union announced its first ever strategy on combating anti-Semitism and fostering Jewish life. Countries such as the Netherlands, Romania have joined Germany, France, the United Kingdom, and so many others in appointing national anti-Semitism envoys and coordinators. Other countries are actively considering doing so. The Organization of American States has appointed its first ever commissioner to monitor and combat anti-Semitism. The Organization for Security and Cooperation has also appointed a special representative, Rabbi Andrew Baker. I am also so deeply encouraged by the support my office and I have received personally from the President and the Vice President of the United States, the leadership of the State Department, and a remarkable bipartisan affirmation from the United States Congress. These new and existing appointments, the elevation of my position to ambassador, and the support I have received are all welcome signs, and we celebrate them, even as we regret deeply and profoundly that they are necessary. In Hebrew, we would call it chatzi nechama. It's akin to having an office to monitor and combat the fight against COVID-19. We are glad that it exists, but sad that it is necessary. We yearn for the day when positions such as the one I am honored to occupy and the many others like it become moribund because the problem they have tasked with monitoring and combating has been resolved. But I am too much of a historian and a realist to imagine that day will come in my lifetime. Today, I wish to speak to you, the graduates, of the ubiquity, the free-flowing nature of anti-Semitism, and what kind of response that demands of us. Anti-Semitism, like other hatreds, has certain unique qualities. In addition to being one of the oldest, if not the oldest, hatreds, it doesn't emanate from one end of the political spectrum, nor does it come from one religious, ethnic, or ideological group. We see it across the ideological and political spectrum. We see it among Christians, Muslims, and sadly, even amongst some Jews. It is part of a global uptick in racially or ethnically motivated violent extremism, which has been fed by individuals and groups who often spread their hateful ideology online. In recent years and recent days, we have seen it emanate from the extreme political right, often in the form of the Great Replacement or Christian replacement theory. This is the hateful notion that posits that there's a plan to destroy white Christian majorities with racial and religious minorities, and to destroy white Christian hegemony. What do Jews have to do with this? According to the racists and extremists who posit this theory, these racial minorities, they're not talented enough, they're not capable enough, smart enough to vanquish white Christian society. There must be, the haters reason, someone behind them, someone who has the malicious smarts, the financial clout, and the desire to harm others for their own benefit. The minorities are the puppets. The Jews are the puppeteers. That is what the protesters at Charlottesville, at the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville in August 2017, when they chanted, to the bewilderment of many people, Jews included, "Jews will not replace us." What did they mean by that? They meant that there was a plan, that Jews had this plan to replace white Christian majority. As an expert witness in the civil suit that was brought late last year against the organizers by individuals who had suffered real attacks and the family of the young woman who was murdered during the rally, I prepared a report for the court and explained to the jury how anti-Semitism was a foundation stone for this rally. Nazi symbols and ideology were evident everywhere in the rally. It was a stunning example of how anti-Semitism and racism, hatred of Black Americans and hatred of Jews, are inexorably intertwined. I outlined for the court and for the jury how the accusation made by the Charlottesville organizers that the Jews were behind an attempt to destroy white America have been adopted and adapted by racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists in other countries in Europe and beyond. What not so long ago was at the extremist end of society has increasingly moved into the mainstream. That was the ideology that inspired the killer in Pittsburgh to commit his awful deed. He had seen that that synagogue had declared the Shabbat in question to be HIAS, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society's Shabbat, a Shabbat to celebrate efforts to ease the path of immigrants into the society. After attacking and murdering the people in Shul, he declared that they will not destroy the white race. 6 months later, the murderer in Poway, California, at the Chabad synagogue, was inspired by the Pittsburgh killer and his belief in the need to stop Jews from orchestrating the replacement. It was also recently evident in Buffalo, in the so-called manifesto prepared by the killer in Buffalo. His words constitute an optimum example, if one can use the word optimum in relation to such a terrible act, of the way in which racial hatred and anti-Semitism are intimately linked. The killer came to kill Black people, people shopping for groceries, buying snacks, and taking their children for ice cream. But in his so-called manifesto, he made it very clear that Blacks were not his only intended target. Describing Jews as demons and the biggest problem the Western world has ever had, he called for them to be killed, and if they are lucky, to be exiled. He instructed his followers not to show them any sympathy. They had to go back to the hell from which they came. They had to be removed from Western civilization in any way possible. These are all quotes. His first objective was to kill Blacks, but, quote, the Jews would be dealt with in time. He did not just hate both groups, but he saw one group, Jews, as using the others, Black, to destroy his culture. For the killers in Pittsburgh, Poway, Halle, Germany, and now Buffalo, Jews are not white. We are the cabal behind this effort to destroy white hegemony. On the extreme left, we see something different. We see a perception of Jews as not just white, but privileged, financially secure, and powerful. Of course, this ignores the fact that there are many Jews who are none of these things. And according to this construct, it is impossible for those who are white and privileged to be the objects of prejudice. Jews can't be objects of prejudice, these people would argue. Therefore, when Jews claim that they have been the subject of an anti-Semitic attack, those on the far left who adhere to this view contend that Jews are making a false claim and are doing so to deflect attention from their own wrongs. There is yet another added element to this response on the left. It is contention of those that they, as committed fighters against all forms of prejudice, cannot be engaging in prejudice, It is, they would declare, oxymoronic to accuse them of engaging in any form of prejudice, anti-Semitism included. Therefore, if Jews, perceived of as white, privileged, and powerful by those on the left who espouse this view, can't be victims of prejudice, and they, as committed fighters against prejudice, can't be guilty of engaging in prejudice, then the Jews' claims that they have been subjected to anti-Semitism by the left cannot be legitimate. Not only is it not legitimate for Jews to claim they are victims of prejudice, but these critics might contend, Jews are using claims of anti-Semitism to cover up their own wrongs, and by extension, those of Israel. We saw it in the British Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn. We see it on many a university campus. We cannot ignore the connection between anti-Semitism and attacks on Israel. Some anti-Semites use Israel as a cover for their anti-Semitism. They couch or camouflage their anti-Semitism in attacks on Israel. We're not attacking Jews, they say. We're criticizing a sovereign state. Let me say something which should be a given and which the United States government has repeatedly affirmed. Criticism of the policies of the Israeli government is not anti-Semitism per se. In fact, Israel, as a vibrant democracy, prides itself on the ability of its citizens and the freedom of its citizens to freely criticize and contest government policies, and they do. We are certainly not suggesting, I'm not suggesting that all threats from different places are of equal severity simultaneously. Sometimes the threat from one place on the spectrum or from another group is more severe than from the other. But that does not mean that the other source of anti-Semitism should be ignored. Where then does that leave you, graduates of Yeshiva University? I think there are two things you must do as supporters of Israel and haters of anti-Semitism. First of all, you must be careful about making accusations of anti-Semitism. When we accuse someone of engaging in anti-Semitism, it must have a rapier sting. It must cut to the quick. You must never give our opponents the chance to dismiss what you are saying because, as they might put it, oh, you're always accusing people with whom you disagree of being anti-Semites. If you too reflexively label any criticism, whether it be of a Jew or of Israel, as anti-Semitism, even when it's sometimes not, our accusations lose potency. At the same time, we cannot fail to acknowledge that some of the criticism of Israel, and particularly of its legitimacy to exist, is naught but a cover for anti-Semitism. When it is anti-Semitism, we must speak out forcefully, unapologetically, and unequivocally. Secondly, we must, and this is really important, I want you to listen to this, we must be equal opportunity fighters against anti-Semitism. We cannot only fight anti-Semitism from one end of the political spectrum, particularly if it's the other end of the political spectrum from our political sympathies. If you only see anti-Semitism on the other side of the political transom, then one can legitimately say, you're not fighting anti-Semitism, you're weaponizing anti-Semitism, using it as a political cudgel against your political opponents. Too many people fight anti-Semitism in what I call the Moshe Dayan approach, with a patch on their eye. They see anti-Semitism very clearly on the other side, but they don't see it coming from right next to them. We must abhor anti-Semitism irrespective of where it comes from. We must be non-partisan, equal opportunity fighters. In fact, we should be more critical of those who engage in anti-Semitism whose other views we might share. We have more credibility with them. Those on the other side of the spectrum might dismiss us. Those with whom we generally agree and stand shoulder to shoulder on other matters are less likely to do so. We yearn for the day when positions such as the one I am honored to occupy and the many others like it are legislated out of existence because of the task that they have been, the problem they have been tasked with monitoring has been resolved. But I am strengthened and encouraged by the knowledge that a multitude of people are hoping and literally praying for me to succeed. The fact that on Shabbat, in many a synagogue, Hanotein Teshuvah is recited, a prayer for the president, vice president, and all who serve with them, includes me, humbles me beyond words, and strengthens me beyond measure. 2 days ago, I was officially sworn into office by Vice President Harris. I took the oath of office on 2 books, a Talmud published by the United States Army, I believe the only religious book ever published by the Army, for use by those in the DP camps in the German zone. A group of rabbis, shortly after the war, approached the Army leadership and made the case that the DPs, the displaced persons, needed spiritual as well as physical rehabilitation. The Army agreed and arranged for the entire Talmud to be published in a special edition. I borrowed this book from the collection of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, which has the entire collection. Wisely, someone sent over the tractate Sanhedrin. I can think of no better tractate on which to take the oath of office if you're entering government than Sanhedrin. But I added to that, if that was not heavy enough, I added to that another book, which in fact I have with me, my mother's book of Psalms. It sat by her bedside. It comforted her in times of sorrow and helped her express her joy in good times. As you can see, it's taped together. It has seen better days. But it's seen very good days 2 days ago. I enter this office bolstered by the knowledge that the leaders of the United States Army recognized the spiritual needs of people who had emerged from the Shoah and were willing to break precedent and publish a 19-volume religious text. I enter this office as the child of 2 immigrants who implanted within their children an abiding faith in their religious identity and an equally abiding faith and gratitude, hakarat hatov, to the United States of America. When the Vice President administered my oath of office at the White House, I ended with the words, "So help me God." I requested that they be included. Some appointees don't include it. But I told the White House, with the job facing me, I need every bit of support I can muster. I know I can count on you to be my earthly allies in this fight. I can only pray that I have such allies, militzei yosher, in the heavens above. V'chein yehi ratzon. Thank you very much.